Hello there. Let's go over exercise 7 and 9 from the Green Book. Starting on page 508, exercise 7. We're looking for whether or not these sentences are action or description, and then we're going to identify the subject and the verb. Some of these are going to be tricky, and there are some issues that we haven't gone over yet, so I'm going to give you a pass on a couple of these sentences, but this is good practice to begin with. Alright, number 1. His poetry and short stories are often about his life. That's description. That should sound like description. So, we have description. The subject, what's being described, are poetry and short stories. Two things are being described. If you just said stories, you left off the word short, that's okay. Now what's tricky about these is the verb. And what a description sentence generally does is it uses a linking verb to attach the subject to some description, right? Some adjective or maybe a noun. In this case, it's a whole phrase. Poetry, short stories, there's our subject. Are is a linking verb, and it's linking the subject to often about his life. That whole phrase. That was a little tricky, like I said. We're going to run into some of those today. Number 2, this is action. He will read and sign. Who's doing the action? He. And the action that he's going to do is will read and will sign. And notice I put the helping verb will onto read and onto sign. We assume that it's there. It's just understood to be part of sign even though it's not written in. If you didn't include a helping verb, no big deal. I'm more concerned that you'd be able to identify the main verb. So if you've just got read and sign, that's fine. Okay, number 3. Carlos, Charles, and I will find front row seats. Okay, 3 people are doing an action, right? So it's action, first of all. Carlos, Charles, and I are the actors. That's the subject. And what are they going to do? They're all going to do one thing, and that's find. So there's our answer. Will find. Will is the helping verb, so we want to start getting into the habit of including helping verbs. But like I said, if you didn't, this time not a biggie. Number 4, my cousin just bought the book Too Many Tamales. Buying is an action. Who did the action? My cousin. What did he do? He bought. Action, cousin, bought. That one's pretty straightforward. Number 5, Gary Soto's latest collection of poetry is wonderful. That is description. What was wonderful? It wasn't the poetry, so we want to be careful of what subject we pick out. It's a collection. Of poetry tells us what kind of collection it is, but the subject of the sentence is collection. What word links collection to wonderful? The linking verb is. Description, collection is. Number 6, his realistic way of presenting life appeals to me. That was tricky. It sounds kind of like his realistic way of life is being described, but not really. His way of life, or presenting life, is doing something. This is action. And appeals is the thing that it's doing. So first of all, what's doing the action? What word do we locate as a subject for number 6? It's the word way. This is action. Way appeals. Number 7. This particular poem brings back many memories. This is action. The subject that's doing the action is poem, and the action is brings. And if you think about what you're doing when you identify subject and verb, you're starting to identify just the bare bones of the sentence. Right? Those are the most important parts. So poem brings, that really is what number 7 is about. We just have some other words, some modifiers to fill in the meaning. Number 6 is about way appeals. Number 5 is about collection is. Now we don't know what kind of collection it is. We don't know what the collection is, right? We need the rest of the words to get the full meaning, but you get an idea of what these sentences are doing. We're starting to be able to see their job and their meaning just in those 2 words, the subject and the verb. Okay, number 8. Something similar happened to me in first grade. Sounds like action. What did the action? Something. The action was happened. Action, something, happened. You can do this backwards too. If you want to You want to say this is action, and the action was happened. So there's our verb. Who did the happening? Or what happened? Something happened. So you can identify it, verb and then subject. Nothing wrong with doing it that way. Number 9. Sandra Cisneros and Rudolfo Anaya are also successful Mexican-American authors. There's no action at all in there to confuse us, right? This is purely description. Who's being described? Those two people. What are they being described as? Successful Mexican-American authors. We could narrow it down to authors, but the important word here is the verb. The verb that links the two names to authors is the word are. Number 10, their stories reflect a rich cultural heritage. Reflecting, that's an action. And we know it's not description because the sentence doesn't say that the stories are a rich cultural heritage. That would be description. But the stories are doing something, right? So stories is a subject, reflect is a verb, and it's doing action. Okay, let's look over at exercise 9 now. So flip the page in your green book over to 510. We have in this sentence a couple of what are called passive voice sentences. I think we've got a video. I don't know if I'll have it posted on today's or next time. Out this stuff. Okay, more on that later. Number 1. Now, what's going to be tricky with these is narrowing down the subject. There are a lot of other sort of noise. There's other words, other describing words and phrases that the publishers of the book are trying to throw you off and make it difficult to find the subject and the verb. Okay, so number 1, many regions of the United States have local legends. Okay, that's action. So we're looking for an action verb. First of all, we can start with the verb, and that's have. So in that sentence, what have local legends? Regions. Right? It's not the word many. Many is describing regions. It's not the United States. It's regions. Action, regions, have. Okay, number 2. One pine forested area in New Jersey is supposedly haunted by the Jersey Devil. Now, this is tricky because this sounds like action, right? Somebody's haunting. However, what's really happening is something is being described as being haunted. This is called a participial. Haunted is an adjective. It's a describing word, but it sure looks like a verb. Well, it is. It's a verb form being used as an adjective. Okay, now, so it is description. What is being described? New Jersey is not being described. It's narrower than that. Right? It's one pine forested area. Area is the subject. And is the verb. It's linking area to haunted. Area is haunted. Right? That basically is what that subject or that sentence is about. Okay, number 3. This fearsome monster reportedly chases campers and wayward travelers through the woods. Well, hopefully that's obviously action to you. Okay, so what's doing the action? Monster. And what's the monster doing? Chases. Not too hard. Action. Monster chases. Number 4. In contrast, Oregon is haunted by legends of the less aggressive Bigfoot. This is a lot like sentence number 2. So something's being described here. Oregon is being described by haunted, and it's being linked to haunted through the verb is. Description, Oregon is. Number 5. This human-like creature secludes itself in heavily forested areas. Okay, this is action. The creature's doing something. The creature is secluding itself. Action, creature, secludes. Number 6. Its shaggy coat of hair looks like a bear's fur. That's description. Now the verb looks might throw you off because that's kind of an action, but it's not really being used as an action here. You can use your eyes to look at something, but in this case, looks is being used as a describing word. And it's describing something as like a bear's fur, and the something would be the subject. It's not hair. It's not shaggy. The coat is what looks like bear's fur, right? So coat is the subject. Looks is a linking verb. Number 7, according to legend, Bigfoot is gentle and shy by nature, avoiding contact with strangers. Okay, now I hear a little bit of action and description in this one. So this one's going to be tricky. According to legend, okay, that's a phrase. That's not really one of the important things we're looking for. Bigfoot is gentle and shy. That one's clearly, those words are clearly description, right? Bigfoot is being described as gentle and shy through the linking verb is. By nature, avoiding contact with strangers. Remember I introduced the term participle earlier? This is a participial phrase. Avoiding contact with strangers. It's describing Bigfoot, but avoiding is a verb, but it's being used as an adjective, and that's the key. So, what are our answers? Description. Bigfoot is the subject, and is the verb. Sorry, my son just came in. I don't know. I gotta go make lunch or something, but we're not ready for me to make lunch. Okay, so phrasing we want to ignore. We want to pair that out. That doesn't really count. And a lot of times what will happen is you've got subject, verb, and then complement. 3 words like Bigfoot is gentle and shy. And then everything else is just sort of tacked on as phrasing, as a modifier. And what we're trying to get at are those bones, those main ideas, primarily subject and verb for these exercises. Okay, number 8. Elsewhere, stories around the Lake Champlain area tell about a monster resembling a sea serpent in the depths of the lake. Okay, same idea here. We have action. We have somebody, something telling. Right? Telling is an action. What tells? Stories. Stories tell. But what about all those other words? About a monster resembling a sea serpent in the depths of the lake. Those are all phrases. They're either prepositional phrases or they're participial phrases. That word resembling, right, is actually, it looks like a verb, but it's describing. So it's getting a little bit complicated. Okay, number 9. This is called a passive voice sentence. Our answer, I'll give you the answer, then I'll describe it. It's description. Sightings have been. Have been is linking sightings to reported. Okay, I'll give you a quick tutorial on passive voice. What this means is that the subject of the sentence isn't really doing anything. It's something's doing it to the subject. So something has been, something is doing the reporting, but it's not the sightings. Sightings are being reported. So someone else is doing the reporting, but we don't see who it is. I mean, this could have read, many sightings of this beast have been reported to authorities by local townspeople. So the townspeople, the campers, whoever, are reporting to the authorities these sightings. Passive voice is a little bit tricky the first time you see it, but after a while you see it's not that hard. Okay, number 10. Over the years, a number of people have tried unsuccessfully to photograph the monster. Okay, this is action. We have people doing something. Actually, no, it's not people. I got that wrong. It's a number of people. Of people is a phrase describing number. So number have tried. Okay, there we have exercise 7 and 9. Go ahead and give me your scores. Don't worry about, if you got a ton of these wrong, not a big deal. This is our first introduction to a lot of this stuff. I just want you to be tracking what you're doing. So go ahead and take a score, and let's do this separately. Give me a score for 7 and a score for 9, because I think this second exercise was quite a bit harder than the first. And pass that along to me, if you would. And here's how I want to do this. Go ahead and give yourself 3 points for each. Okay, so both of these would be worth 30. Boy, that's kind of unfair. Hang on, because I should have told you that at the beginning. Well, if you can, give me a score out of 30, because I do want to know sort of what you're doing right and wrong, or I at least want you to track that. So 3 points for each. If you went through and you scored it anyway with just 1 point each, that's fine. You could always go back and listen to the video again, but this one turned into